Yes. Okay. That passes 5-0. So, on to communications. On to my president's report. So just a second. Today is September 22nd. I welcome all of you to the meeting, and those in attendance and those watching online, those who are here to show up. If you're here for the public portion, participation portion of the meeting, and you would like to speak on remonstrance, please remember to fill out this blue card, and you can hand that to Mr. Ahar, treasurer. Thank you. And if you're here for the, we have lots of students being recognized. I'll come in a second, but today's the first day of fall. Summer pretty much came and went in a quick exit of a rainy day. And I'm looking forward to fall sunshine, but I'm also looking forward to the fall sports, homecoming, which will be happening, and in the beginning of October, in about maybe 9 days next weekend, and much more. So I welcome all those here. I especially want to welcome the students and families at Wilcox Primary, George C. Dodge Intermediate, Twinsburg High School, and they're going to be our special guests this evening. They'll be recognized shortly. So the school year is well underway now, and as adjustments are made and everyone's getting acclimated to some new ways of doing things, there's a few people I want to commend, groups. I want to commend their staff and students for sure for a great start to this beginning of the school year. I also want to recognize the administrators, the staff, and the Twinsburg Police for the work that they've done managing the efficient process and kind of a crazy process of moving the traffic through the district in the morning. When I pull up to drop off my son in the morning, I look at the lines, I start to get a little anxious, but then by the time I even have time to even get worked up over it, I'm in, I'm out, I'm gone. And they've been really great at getting people in and out. And kudos to Ms. Critchlow, who has the duty of getting the buses in and out, or getting the buses out. She's done a really good job with that, managing that in an organized manner. And just want to stay safe, and I want you all to just keep an eye out for her and just be safe around that. I want to recognize the high school boys and the ladies Tiger soccer teams. They are ranked, last I saw, they were ranked, the girls were number 1 in the top 15 in their conference, and the boys were number 3 behind University School and St. Ignatius. If you can join the teams and support this Saturday at 1 o'clock, for the boys youth soccer day, they're playing Willoughby South, and the ladies Tiger youth soccer night is at 6:20 versus at West Geauga. And all kids who are wearing their soccer jerseys get in free of charge, and lots of activities planned. I believe we get a voucher for a snack bar, so we're bringing that back. They're bringing that back, and it's going to be a really great day and evening for the sports with kids. Finally, as the weather starts turning, we're spending more time indoors. I want to encourage everyone to continue practicing safety measures to reduce spread of exposure with illnesses that are the usual culprits like the flu in the fall, viruses, colds, and that which will go unmentioned today. Let's do everything we can to keep our kids safe and to keep them in school, please. We have a lot to get through tonight, so I'm just going to turn over the meeting to Mrs. Powers, and this ends my president's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. Good evening, Board of Education. Good evening, everyone who's here tonight and watching us on our live stream. And I want to thank Mr. Kirtley for taking care of our live stream responsibilities. He always makes our district look so great, and we appreciate him being here this evening helping us with that. Board of Education, we're excited to welcome back to our board meetings our students who are here this evening, and we're going to get to our amazing students soon. But it's been a year since we've actually had students at our Board of Education meeting, and so this is just a nice way to start the school year with having the kids present, and we appreciate their parents being here with them this evening. It's always fun to recognize students, and we congratulate them for some really great work. If you saw my Blackboard Connect message from earlier this afternoon, you saw that our virtual open houses are tomorrow, Thursday, September 23rd. The link to our open houses will be sent, going to be on our district website. So what you'll have to do is go onto the district website on the home page, and if you look in the news section, we will have a link to all of the schools and their open house presentations. They are absolutely fantastic. Had a chance today to click through some of them. And it will give our families a nice opportunity to learn a little bit about how their child's class is being managed. Just some fun things that students will be doing this year, and also our administrators and counselors have important parts of tomorrow night's presentations as well. So I hope our families enjoy the virtual open houses. They'll be posted on the website precisely at 7 p.m. tomorrow night for our families to enjoy. Board of Education, there have been some questions since yesterday about the District's Record Commission, which met yesterday morning. What is the District Records Commission and what do they do? The District's Records Commission is comprised of the board president, our treasurer, our business manager, and me. The work of the Records Commission is outlined in Ohio Revised Code 149.38. The purpose for yesterday's meeting was to review a revised records retention schedule, to review the logs of obsolete records submitted by our schools and departments, and to initially authorize the disposal of those records. Before school district records are formally authorized for disposal, we are required to submit the logs known as Certificates of Records Disposal to the Ohio History Connection State Archives of Ohio for formal approval. The revised records retention schedule must also be submitted to the Ohio History Connection State Archives of Ohio before it can be used in our school districts. Until we receive this authorization, the district is unable to dispose of any records and that are listed on the Certificates of Records Disposal. Board of Education, as you know, our district continues to respond to the ongoing pandemic, and we have instituted many protocols and practices to ensure the health and safety of our students, staff, and their families. At the next board meeting, as I promised, I will make a recommendation to you regarding the next 6 weeks of our school district's operations as related to the pandemic. Recall that I committed to formally making these recommendations to you each 6 weeks as the pandemic continues to evolve. And I again want to thank Health Commissioner Donna Skoda at the Summit County Public Health Department. Again, today we were on a call with her. The information she provides to us has been spot on, and we are most grateful to the leadership at Summit County Health Department for all that they're doing to keep our families safe. Board, having said that, there are a couple of discussion items for you to provide feedback this evening, and I sent these questions to you earlier today. We're looking for some direction with regard to the operations of the district. As we are now underway, families would like to begin to use some of the facilities for activities that are common here in our school district. First of all, we are very appreciative of our PTAs. We have wonderful PTAs in our district, and one of the things that they do for our students are the annual book fairs. And because students just love coming to the book fairs. Last year we had to do things a little differently, and the book fairs were either virtually or there were some hybrid models as well. However, the PTA would request a return to on-campus book fairs either during the school day or after hours. And I am interested to hear your feedback so that I could offer some direction to our PTA leadership who are actually meeting tomorrow evening.
I think as long as we can maintain the same procedures that we're doing in school, I'm fine with it.
I would agree.
And I am definitely fine with it. I'm suspecting that it will keep the groups coming in to smaller numbers. And with that and the safety protocols in place, I would be definitely in favor of this returning for the book fairs for the kids.
I'm definitely in favor of it.
Thank you. Awesome. All right. They will be happy and our kids will be ecstatic, actually. So thank you very much for your support. Second of all, as you know, our athletic students, our athletes have been very busy engaged in competitions all fall. The question was raised actually by Mr. Lynn regarding the high school extracurricular clubs such as Academic Challenge and whether or not they can also begin to participate in their various activities, their extracurricular field trips after the school day. Mr. Belber's opinion?
I guess I'm starting off each time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that as well. Again, the same safety protocols that they're following during the day.
Same.
I definitely agree with that. I want them to start to get their normal activities back in place.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Good. Great. All right, awesome. Thank you. Similar to that, and this is something I actually did not send to you, board, there's been a question about the Washington, D.C. field trip. It's an overnight trip away from home. Any thoughts about that? That takes a lot of effort, and if that is something that the board is interested in our 8th graders doing this year, we need to get working on finalizing details. Alternatively, we could suggest that will take a pause this year because we are late already. Usually the contracts for DC are secured in the spring of the year prior, but we did have a question asked about whether or not Washington, DC would be a trip that would be authorized this year.
I would be interested to know what safety protocols are in place in Washington given the recent activities in January. I certainly wouldn't want to put our students and staff in harm's way unnecessarily. I'm not saying that we should put a pause this year, but I think that I would want more information in terms of what those protocols are in place, if there's any recommendations for people that are visiting Washington, D.C., what are they? Where can we and cannot go? I'm assuming there are probably areas that we used to be able to go to that are probably pretty restricted now. I'm just wondering to what extent they would actually be able to do all of the things that they normally would do in Washington under the current climate and circumstances. So I'm a little reluctant to give a yes right now. But if I had more information to consider, I would be open to some form of a visit, just kind of knowing exactly what it would entail.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis.
I know we as a district have always maintained doing our own tours, so we do have quite a bit of control over where they go and what they see and so forth. But I think meal times, lodging, there's a lot of complications, and I would agree with Mr. Curtis. I'd rather see how each one of the items on the itinerary are addressed. We can't control what other schools or what other groups are going to be in some of those locations at the same time. So I think we need to give some thought to that. Kind of puts them behind the 8 ball. You never want to take this trip away, but I think it's important to make sure it's operated as safely as possible.
Well, and I just want to add, as you know, I had a scheduled visit to go to Washington for board business, and which is typically in person, and they changed it to virtual. So there may be an option or a way to do this virtually as well. The circumstances were a little different then, than they are right now. But again, that's also something to consider.
And we don't know, some of it may be out of our hands as to what is permissible, but when you posed the question about field trips, that was in the back of my mind, is the trip to Washington. And while field trips, I think we can do them safely, my biggest concern, I guess, would be the lodging, because if I remember right, there was always 4 to a room, correct? Mm-hmm. So that's a lot. And maybe it could be done safely with 2 in the room, but then I'm sure that would increase cost. So there's a lot of things to consider. I'm hoping it would be wonderful if this can be worked out somehow, but there's so much that needs to be discussed firsthand. And I know my son missed that trip last year, and I had looked forward to it. I would love to see something happen with this, but there's so much, I think, more discussion before even coming to any kind of conclusion this early.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would love to see them go, but I think it also depends on what is open in Washington. So is that, they may not even be allowing field trips from the schools, given, the pandemic and everything else that's going on. So that's something to look into.
Thank you.
When's the typical time frame?
It's usually in May, Mrs. Gordon.
Things might change, but I'll tell you, my son's at school in DC right now. It's a totally different culture than Ohio. So they're much more conservative than we are. Lots of people are wearing masks everywhere they go, outside as well. Lots of things are locked down. His campus is 100% masked, outside and indoors. So I'm thinking lots of things are probably closed right now. So I would say make some phone calls and see what their conditions are of reopening. But I'm thinking it's probably not going to be practical. But if things are open, we should probably see if there's a way to at least think through what the plan would look like.
Okay, I will work with Mr. Reese and the staff at RBC to see what we can come up with as far as planning goes and present that to you at a later board meeting. Thank you for the consideration. With regard to general field trips, this time of the year, the primary school kids are usually at the apple orchard, for example. Is the board amenable to students attending field trips as long as protocols are in place?
I'd be fine with that.
I think if we have plenty of maybe more than usual volunteers, chaperones or something who can help keep these kids in little safe pods or whatever you want to call it. Outdoors definitely. Indoors, I think we'd have to find out the venue's protocols for safety and what they're doing to ensure that people are kept safe, and then have discussions from there. But again, I'd like to see these kids start to get back into field trips and things like that, their experiences of elementary school and even junior high.
Thank you.
That would be fine.
Thank you. Mr. Felber, too?
Same.
All right, thank you so much. I know that our teachers will be very excited to hear that news. Thank you for the support. With regard to visitors to school, we have lots of parents who come to our schools to support just work that happens in our classrooms, and since last year we haven't had that opportunity. The question was asked, are we permitting visitors in our buildings at this time or at another later date, depending on where this pandemic evolves? And if you are going to permit visitors to work with kids, are you considering some kind of restriction, for example, requirement that the visitor would be vaccinated, of course, wearing masks as well?
We're allowing people into our facilities. The mask piece is not negotiable for me. If you're going to be on buildings, you need to have a mask on. That's what we require. But otherwise, I'm a little reluctant, but the fact of the matter is that, when we talk about people being inside our facilities, we are allowing them inside the facility so long as they follow the safety protocol that we have in place. If they refuse to do that, then obviously that would be problematic, and I would not be in favor of allowing them access.
I'd like to see maybe another month to see where the federal mandates shake out, because I know there's going to be a lot of challenges back and forth. We do fall under the size of employer that would need to be mandated for vaccination. So before we talk about visitors and more variables, I think we need to see where it shakes out, for us first, beyond masking.
I'm leaning more towards allowing, but limited, like maybe one parent in a classroom, not really more, to maybe assist or help or help with the teachers in some way. I know when I used to volunteer, sometimes they wouldn't even use me in the classroom. They needed me to make copies in the workroom or something, and not even really interacting with kids. It was whatever the teacher's needs were at that time. So, but as far as being in the classroom, I think I would be okay with one, following the same protocols that the teachers follow as far as distance and interaction with the students.
I'm in the same way with, as long as you're taking proper measures and washing hands and doing what the school, I think it'd be fine. Because, I too remember helping out. I was not necessarily in the classroom as I was maybe making copies and doing some just odds and ends for the teacher. And you're in there for maybe a half hour at a time, maybe one per day or maybe one per week. Such a limit, but I think it should be okay.
Thank you.
I actually support them starting, and I think the same thing as Mr. Curtis said, masks have to be worn. I don't think you can mandate vaccines. We're not doing it with our staff. So that being said, I think that some of the lunches actually could use some help right now. And so I think supplementing, if people are willing to come in and help, I think it would be a good thing.
Okay, so how about I write up some procedures for visitors and present that to the board just to review so that everyone is on the same page. Because whatever we do at Bissell, we need to do at Wilcox and so forth.
Right.
And that would be a really helpful thing. I appreciate the conversation regarding visitors.
Yeah, and generally at the junior high and high school, I found out as my kids got older, they really don't need you there as much, other than maybe to help with some tasks behind the scenes. So interaction with the kids at those schools are generally at a minimal for volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
So the next thing has to do with our two of our large parent support organizations, the Twinsburg Vocal Music Boosters and the Twinsburg Athletic Boosters. Both of them in the wintertime host very large fundraising efforts, and they're a lot of fun actually. The Twinsburg Vocal Music Boosters will host their North Coast, and the TAB organization hosts the middle school wrestling tournament. The question was raised whether or not the board would support both of the organizations moving forward. The time is of the essence because they both have to send contracts to other schools to get groups of students here in the organized fashion that they do. And if you've been to either or both, you know how many details need to be tended to. And the fact is that both organizations rely on those two events to do the important work they do with our students. And last year they lost that opportunity. So both leadership groups have asked me to request of you the ability for them to do North Coast and the TAB wrestling tournament. So I'm interested to have your feedback about those.
Do we know how many schools are participating in the North Coast?
They have not sent contracts out yet because of what happened last year. I can tell you how Medina handled their event last year. It was very different than is usual. As you know, if you've been to North Coast, it's an all-day event starting early in the morning, and the kids perform, and then they go and they stay in their study rooms, or they have lunch or whatever. At Medina last year, that didn't happen. Great Expectations performed, as did many show choirs, but they were permitted to come in, perform, and then they had to go. So they didn't get the chance to observe each other or participate in the collegiality that is what the show choir world is all about. I asked Peter Hampton, who's our new show choir director, to poll his directors and other schools who have show choirs, and everybody is sort of where we are, just trying to figure it out. So we don't have, I don't have a whole information for you to say X amount of high schools are going to do it this way or that way. Nobody is really committed because they're sort of watching the evolution of the pandemic happen. A lot of high school students were disappointed last year because they couldn't participate, and they are hoping to avoid that in this school year.
What about if we wait until they get a better, once they collaborate to make that decision? Would you have enough time to do that or no?
I know Mr. Hampton has sent inquiries out. Mr. Lynn and I spoke with him last week and talked through a lot of things with regard to show choir. I know he's been busy establishing those networks. But when he emailed me earlier this week, he doesn't have a definitive answer as how to other high schools who are hosting such events are going to manage them this year. They all kind of paused on sending out contracts because they're concerned about promising an event and then having to back off of it because something happens with the pandemic.
It would be interesting if some of these schools that were participating, or many of the schools who would want to participate, could do some kind of Zoom or Google Meet or something to brainstorm on a plan for safety. Because this isn't something I want to say no to right off the bat. And I know we have to proceed with caution because we don't know where we'll be in a few more months. Could be on our way up, could be on our way down. But I would hope that there would be some kind of something they can do, virtual or whatever, to discuss a plan for safety and try to all get on the same page and then present it out. I'm not sure what that would look like, but I'm sure it would need to be run differently than in years past. But I'd like to see it happen.
That'd be fine. I'm going to be consistent in that I want to make sure that we afford our kids every opportunity to do what they normally would be doing. even under these circumstances. I think every district is pretty used to, these protocols right now. And so the extent to which they will follow them, I trust the adults to ensure that, that they're in compliance with what's expected at whatever school district they visit. Last year we did, after prom, we had a ton of kids with adults chaperoning. And as long as everybody follows the rules, I don't see any harm with it. The only caveat that I would add is that things change. So, what we know today, tomorrow may be different, and the rules may change. But given where we are today, I wouldn't want to deny them an opportunity. I know that's one of the biggest fundraisers, if not the biggest. And the extent to which we really have an opportunity to do it, I want to afford them that opportunity. Same with the music boosters.
I would agree with not wanting to restrict them from doing it, but I think we still need to be cognizant of the risks. I think the biggest risks are large crowds, schools coming in with different protocols. They would have to adhere to our host protocols. But I would like some forethought into how can we limit crowd size. I don't know if each show choir is watching each other show choir live, or could we do some kind of closed circuit so they could still watch their colleagues perform and at least afford, the visiting parents, and guests to be able to watch their home show choir. I think we need some forethought into how we can manage larger crowds. Obviously indoor events are the highest risk. So I'd like to see some planning and some thought on that.
And Tab, I'm not sure if that's something that, there's like, I think usually sometimes around 30 schools coming into that. It's a really great program. We might have to consider limiting how many people can come per family, like we did with other sports when we were first, introducing sports, to make it fair for those who want to see their kids participate, so that they are insured places, safe places. That may be one thing to consider.
Mrs. Gordon,
this is to me one of those just-in-time things, so I think I support it for now. We should move forward, and if numbers are too high, we won't be the only school that says, wait, we need to back off. So I would start assuming that it's going to go forward and reserve the right to change, as Mr. Curtis said.
so what I'll do is I'll work with leadership from both TAB and TVMB to create a plan. And I think with thoughtful planning, we may be able to host just a great event for not just our students, but for the visiting high schools and middle schools as well. Okay, I'll keep you posted with regard to that. Speaking of TVMB, one of the things that the students enjoy doing, and it would have happened in the summer, but they missed the summer, is that they have a dance-a-thon. This is a fundraiser for just Great Expectations and Mood Swingers. Students are locked in the high school commons from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. on a Saturday night or a Friday night. Adult chaperones from TVMB are here, and the kids raise money for the number of hours they can dance. It sounds tiring, but they have a great time, and so they would like permission to plan for that event. Just wanted to ask your opinion about that.
I think great idea.
Okay. Everybody good? I think I hear the high school kids jumping up and down. Mr. Lynn will be happy to tell them tomorrow morning he's on. And then the last thing I have aboard for your input has to do with our community rec programs. Last year we took a pause on allowing cheerleading and basketball and wrestling, the rec programs, to use the facilities. Pretty much after hours, the buildings were pretty much dark. And the staff that was used to support the rec programs, they were all shifted to help us with the health and safety protocols during the school day. I'd like to ask Mr. Walker if he could come down and just say a few things about the staffing piece before we have a decision with regard to moving forward with allowing our rec programs to use the facilities. Just some considerations as far as staffing and implications to what that might look like.
you. So for the rec sports, I think one of the things is looking at the cleaning protocols. I think we're struggling as far as for OT, as far as covering different events. We're obviously using the same individual for every event for Tiger Stadium on Saturdays and Sundays. So that's one consideration to have. In regards to rec basketball, we used to transfer somebody from a Monday through Friday schedule to a Tuesday through Saturday schedule pre-COVID. Concerned about making that shift because really we need to have equal cleaning across Monday through Friday. So for that, we would suggest that we continue to keep our crew Monday through Friday and then work Saturday OT if we entertain the option of doing rec basketball on Saturdays. But that's one of the things we're concerned about is whether we can support the staffing requirements given some of the increased needs.
I think that's the wild card. We can't agree to allow someone in one week and not the next, and then next week, we're looking at national labor shortage anyway, so obviously we're being touched by that as much as possible. I'm not sure what answer we can give if we can't be told that we can guarantee sanitation coverage at those extra days.
And I think what we could do is approach our crew and see what we can do based on the discussion here today. And we want to make sure that we could commitments through the whole season so that we wouldn't be having that issue.
Yeah, I would like to see if we can get commitment to do so, because I really wouldn't want to deny these groups. I mean, these are our students, and we've done it before, but now there's more moving parts to this. But I would really love to see them back to be able to use these facilities and just explore where we can, if we can logically make this work out with coverage, and if we have staff who are able to do so.
Do we have contract restrictions that other positions cannot do that work? I mean, if it's offered and the overtime's offered and it's not filled, could other positions in classified be offered those same duties?
So you can certainly work through the different components of janitorial and custodial and maintenance and grounds and explore other avenues. So we would certainly we definitely want to provide opportunities to students. So we would
whether it be students or
Sure,
bus
no,
drivers
sure.
or other positions. I just didn't know if we were under. I know we contractually you probably have to offer it, as you mentioned, but if we go through all those positions and we still can't get coverage, can we come up with a training program? And if 4 bus drivers wanted to say, I'll pick up the extra hours.
We could certainly look at that as an option too, because we want to turn every.
We want to give them the opportunity. If we're doing dances and show choirs, I have no problem doing the event. I just want to make sure we can, it's a different time, so we need to be able to cover it.
Are we feeling this in other areas outside of maintenance and custodial right now? So somebody mentioned, substitutes and how it has to, be competitive right now. It's a tough thing to do. Are we feeling any constraints right now?
As far as coverage goes?
Yeah.
Yes, Mrs. McKinney has been tracking our fill rates, and indeed we are having difficulty. It's not a Twinsburg issue.
Right.
Actually, it's a national issue with labor shortage. So what we can do, we actually have a labor management meeting scheduled with leadership of TSSA next week. We can propose the manner in which we could get coverage for these Saturday basketball games. The events during the school day, or school evenings, I should say, should not be as problematic because the staff is already here. It's just the Saturday coverage we have to be creative in getting that coverage, because to be honest with you, Board, our staff is pretty tired. They had a busy summer, and at this point, the weekends are pretty valuable to them. This when you talk about our janitorial staff. So we will have to think outside the box to get that covered, but we needed to know if that's an interest of yours before we did that work. It certainly does sound like we would like to, if re-invite the athletes back into the buildings as long as we have appropriate staffing to cover the trainings.
Yes.
We'll be creative with that. We appreciate your feedback. I thank you so much, Board, for your direction on these items. We want to be very diligent in what we do and making sure that we continue to keep the safety of our kids front and center. And so your feedback tonight will allow us to do some different things as we move into fall here. Summer here is amazing. Board of Education, this evening on the agenda, you have already noted the recommendation for the sports medicine agreement with the Cleveland Clinic. As you know, Board of Education, this recommendation comes to you after representatives from both university hospitals and the Cleveland Clinic made formal presentations to you this past summer. With athletic trainer Mike Shearer retiring at the end of last school year, we knew we had huge shoes to fill, so we were pleased that both university hospitals and the Cleveland Clinic provided proposals. We truly appreciate the partnership we've enjoyed with the university hospitals over the past years. During the summer, University Hospital submitted a very respectable proposal, and we were grateful for their interest in serving our students. Due to this evening's hopeful approval of the sports medicine agreement with the Cleveland Clinic, University Hospitals agreed to terminate its sponsorship agreement with our school district. In turn, the district will reimburse University Hospital $6,250 in sponsorship funds, which were previously paid for their services for the year. Also, I want to thank the EMTs from Twinsburg's Fire Department who assisted with our athletic practices during the month of August. We truly appreciated their assistance in keeping our student athletes safe. There were a couple of items that drew our conclusion that an agreement with the Cleveland Clinic fits our needs. First, and perhaps of greatest interest to the parents of our athletes, is the fact that the Cleveland Clinic Sports Medicine Agreement will provide 2 athletic trainers to assist our students, with one of those athletic trainers focusing upon strength and conditioning. The strength and conditioning piece is very important, and in many conversations over the years with parents of our athletes, the lack of a strength and conditioning program is identified as a problematic weakness. Thus, we were delighted that this challenge will be addressed through this new partnership with the Cleveland Clinic. Further, the agreement includes, among other things, a sports physical therapist who will be on site for 3 hours per week for student-athlete rehabilitation. Finally, the agreement also provides a sponsorship for the district's multimedia project, which includes the scoreboards at Tiger Stadium, in the gym here at the high school, and the monitor in the commons here in the high school, which allows for the viewing of events in the auditorium to be projected into the commons. This evening, I'm excited and delighted to introduce to you Dr. Paul Saluan from Cleveland Clinic, who is here to share just a few thoughts with regard to this hopeful partnership with the Cleveland Clinic. Dr. Saluan.
Thank you, Board. I appreciate you making the time and appreciate being your guest today. Thank you for allowing me to take a little bit of your time this evening. My name is Paul Salwin. I'm an orthopedic surgeon, the director of sports medicine at Cleveland Clinic, and we are honored to be considered to provide care for you and your students. We've been doing so for the last month or so, and with our athletic trainers and with our physicians providing care in the interim. Why are sports so important to us? Sports are not just finding a way to get to the professional level. You know, I'm sorry, but less than 1% of all of our athletes are going to get to the professional level at any sport. Really, the importance of sports is developing a way of life for these kids so that they can excel academically, so they can get into social environments better, so they can combat depression and other psychological issues, especially that are taking hold right now with COVID and the post-COVID situation. So I think the importance of sports now is paramount, and it's demonstrated now more than ever. So we at Cleveland Clinic take care of the athlete, not only to take care of getting somebody back on the field, but allow them to be what they want to be in their life and ultimately use those lessons from the field in becoming the best at what they can do no matter what they choose. And we look at that as a vocation, and that's how we come to work every day. That was instilled in us by John Bergfeld, the father of sports medicine at Cleveland Clinic. He actually developed sports medicine as a realm throughout the country. And he's still practicing. He's 86 years old. He was just there today seeing some patients, and he misses no opportunity to make fun of me whenever he can. But it's a passion, and it's a way of life. And we very strongly feel that we will be your best healthcare provider anywhere in the world. I don't think you will find anybody else better than Cleveland Clinic Sports Medicine to provide care for your athletes and your families and your employees. From a care standpoint, we continue to develop and excel at what we do. I'm surrounded by amazing partners. My colleague in charge with me is Latul Farrow, born and raised in Cleveland as well. I was born and raised in Cleveland. He went to BW, played football there. I went to John Carroll, played football there. Marie Schaefer is one of my associates as well. She grew up in Brecksville and now cares for Cleveland State. So we're all homers, and we all see the importance of the relationship of Twinsburg. Your location and proximity to Cleveland Clinic Twinsburg Family Health Center is also paramount, because that gives us access to provide the care we need to in your backyard. And it's not only taking care of athletes on the field, it's taking care of athletes and families with cardiology concerns. We have some of the best sports cardiologists in the world who are actually now developing some programs with us, including getting EKG monitors for all of our student athletes, and actually doing that on the front end of the season at no cost in order to look at some of these things. Some of what spurred this on was the post-COVID cardiomyopathy issues and some of the concerns with that. We are the provider for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and there's a lot of work going on in the NBA with this, because basketball players tend to get those cardiac issues a bit more than others. And so we're rolling this out into what we do at the professional level. We roll down to our colleges and our high schools. And so you'll have access to all that care as well, including sports psychology, sports nutrition, women's sports health that Marie Schaefer is leading up for us. So we have many other programs that we would like to continue to utilize and put in front of you. The two physicians who have volunteered to work with you are Sal Frangiamore, who's one of our orthopedic surgeons, who is one of the Cleveland Indians doctors, highly trained in sports medicine, wonderful at what he does. Kelly Estes is dual board certified in emergency medicine and sports medicine, and she also will be a co-team physician with Sal. They both practice out of Twinsburg Family Health Center, and so they'll be very accessible day and night to you. As mentioned, we have two athletic trainers earmarked as well that we would like to move ahead with if we get the green light. And we also finally have much more than the care. It's experiential learning opportunities, I guess, where we can have your students come through. We do this with a lot of the other high schools we care for, where they can come through in some form or fashion and spend time with us and learn a bit more about the healthcare fields, including not only physician, but physician assistant, nursing, physical therapists, athletic training, all other forms of fields that we can get them in and go through with them. So in short, we do have a passion for what we're doing, and we have the tools to supply you with the best care you can get. And I'm very confident in saying this. I don't think I'm being unrealistic, and I don't want to come off as pompous either, because this is not my doing, but I'm surrounded by the best in the world. And you have the best in the world here in Cleveland at Cleveland Clinic Sports Medicine. And we are thrilled to have the opportunity to provide care for you, and we will, if we get that opportunity, we'll move ahead, and we will exceed expectations. So thank you for your time, and appreciate the time you let me take out of your day, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Steinberg. We appreciate you being here this evening. So now it's time to celebrate some great students, and I would like to first introduce Mr. Scott Esty, who is pinch hitting for Ms. Villa, who had a different engagement this evening. And we are so excited to learn why Wilcox rocks. And it rocks because of the wonderful students that participate in so many different things at Wilcox Primary School. Boys and girls, just some directions for this evening. The board would love to meet you on the stage, so what we're going to ask you to do is Mr. Asti is going to introduce you, and he has a certificate for you, so he's going to hand you the certificate, and then we're going to ask you to be very careful and walk up the steps over by where Mr. Felber is. And Mr. Felber's going to help you so that you're careful walking up the steps. And then you're to ask to please stand in front here in front of Mrs. Davis's table, and so that all the moms and dads in the audience have a chance to congratulate you. And I know your parents want to take a nice photo of you too, so we're going to ask you all to stand up there until all the children from your school are introduced. So we can give you a round of applause, and then you can sit down once your mom and dad had a nice chance to take a picture. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Asti, who has some great students to celebrate tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Powers, Board of Education. It brings me great privilege to be back up and recognizing students in person. Last year we had to do the videos, which was a very cute spin on it and a great way to celebrate. There's nothing better than being in person and recognizing the students for the great things and great achievement that they have. Real quick, before we get into that, I just want to note a couple building highlights. Wilcox, we're off to a great start. A lot of little kiddos, 700 plus kids coming in and out of Wilcox, and definitely ironed out a ton of kinks there, and it's going very smooth these days. We're completing our beginning of the year assessments with our measures of academic progress assessments, early learning assessment, and the kindergarten readiness assessments are all in process as well. They get those baseline skill sets, and so we can gauge that instruction accordingly. Our students participated in bus safety lessons and are working their way through their Chromebooks by using the clever cards and getting in and out for those instructional purposes at an age-appropriate and developmentally appropriate levels. Picture Day is coming up here on September 30th, and so parents, that's a good thing to note that that's coming up. And like Mrs. Powers had already stated, our virtual open house is going live tomorrow, and I know our staff had a lot of fun completing that for our families and students. So without further ado, like Mrs. Powers said, boys and girls, I'm going to call your name, and if you can come up, and I have a special certificate from you, and you're going to go up onto the stage and stand up there. So first up, we have Chloe Bailey. Chloe, come on down. So Mrs. Mendez is Chloe's teacher, and she says that she nominated Chloe for her kindness and inclusion in the classroom. Chloe often includes classmates she sees playing alone. She is kind to everyone she meets and is a great role model to other classmates. Mrs. Mendez could not be more proud of Chloe. Our next student is Noah Meyer in Mrs. Lennox's class. Come on down, Noah. Noah is not here, but I'll read a little bit about him anyways. He's new to Wilcox this year, but you would never know because he jumped right in. He listens to directions the first time and is a good guide and friend to his fellow classmates. He is kind, caring, and a young man who enjoys school and demonstrates that by a smile on his face. Our next student is Jack Torcasey in Mrs. Brown's class. Jack Torcasey is a sweet and dependable youngster who Miss Browning is enjoying getting to know. He comes to school ready to begin his day and eager to meet the daily goals. He often participates and is a great role model for his peers. Jack is why Wilcox rocks. Our next student is Owen Willis. Owen is a wonderful young man that comes into school every day with a smile on his face and ready to learn. He is a polite student and a joy to have in class. Miss Litmus really hopes to enjoy ravioli with him one day at lunch. I have a feeling there's a backstory there that I'm going to have to inquire about. Owen Willis. Our next student is Kylie Longley. Kylie is a kindergartner in Mr. Cola's class, and she has followed the school rules very well. She is kind and respectful. Kaylee has been a behavioral role model for other students. Wilcox rocks because Kylie is a star student. Our next student is Chanel Norman in Mrs. Petrus's class. Chanel is rocking kindergarten. She does an amazing job listening and following directions. She loves to raise her hand and participate in class lessons. She is so kind and has made many, many friends already. Mrs. Petrash is so lucky to have her in her class and knows she'll have an awesome kindergarten year. Chanel Norman. And our final student we're recognizing is Kennelie Weisenberger in Mrs. Moore's class. Mrs. Moore says that Kennelie is always prepared and ready to go. She enters the classroom and follows the routines and sits quietly while waiting for instruction. She is doing a great job these first few weeks of kindergarten, and keep up the great work. Congratulations. All right, boys and girls, if you can hold your certificates up in front of you, so the colorful side is facing out, and the blue part's at the top and the yellow part's at the bottom. That is awesome. I'm going to step aside. Moms and dads, this is a great opportunity to stand up and get a picture of your little one. Nice big smiles, boys and girls. One more round of applause for all of you. As our littlest fighters make their way off the stage, I'd like to bring up Miss Julian Walker, Assistant Principal at Dodge Intermediate School.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Julian Walker. I'm one of the assistant principals for Dodge Intermediate School. And I'm very excited to come back this year and to be back in the building with our students. I have some great students to present to you this evening as our Students of the Month. A couple of highlights for you as we are settling back at Dodge. This year we actually had 2 grade levels that are new to Dodge. So that's been very exciting to see them get acclimated to the building. They all think how big it is and how huge it is, and will we ever learn it? And it's just been a really great transition. We too have been doing our beginning of the year assessments, and we have added IXL to our programming this year. Our teachers and staff had some professional development with IXL, and we're excited to see what kind of data it can bring to us in our progress in reading and math. And lastly, in the next couple weeks, along with our partnership with the Twinsburg Police Department, our 6th graders will begin DARE class with Officer Beata. So we are excited to have that back in the building and moving forward. At this time, though, I would like to present to you our Students of the Month, and they are representing our 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. From Mrs. Stauffer and Mrs. Magnus's class, I'd like to introduce you to Anthony Brown and Sasha Hamid. and Mrs. Williams' classroom, it's Kaylee Majea, Lillian Lockman, and Vincent Lee. And then representing our 6th grade, from Mr. Pulaski, Ms. Markoulis, and Ms. Yakubowski, we have London Strickland, Gurka Apal. And from Mrs. Kotzman's class, Sajaprit Singh. Certificates. So could I have another round of applause for all of these? At this time, I'm going to introduce Mr. Lynn, the Twinsburg High School principal.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Superintendent Powers, and distinguished guests. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight to represent Twinsburg High School and all of our wonderful students and staff. Before I introduce our students of the month, a few brief highlights. As the incoming principal of THS, one of my main priorities over the course of the summer was to plan for a successful and smooth reopening of school. On August 16th, we were able to welcome our staff back into the building for their first official move-in day. The entire staff was extremely happy to be back in their THS home and return to their classrooms. I would specifically like to highlight the work of our entire custodial staff at Twinsburg High School, who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to move us into Twinsburg High School again and ensure that we can operate in a COVID-safe environment. Our counseling department pushed schedules out to students electronically almost 3 weeks previous than they had ever done before. This allowed us to open the building, and many students and parents remarked that they felt very comfortable just having to walk through the building and walk their schedules, because 3/4 of our students at THS had not spent a significant amount of time in this building before we began this year. August 24th was a significant day as we were able to start our soft reopening and welcome 1/4 of our students each day. And I'd like to thank the board and the district for their leadership in allowing us to meet with students in small groups and make them feel comfortable was a very important piece. August 30th was the day that I had circled on my calendar since I took the job here, and it was the day that we welcomed over 1,300 students and staff to our building. I would like to thank our parents, our students, and everyone. I say the enthusiasm on day 1 was contagious, and it has continued through week 5. Again, thank you to the community. As previously mentioned, we've been able to work through some logistical issues with arrival, dismissal, lunch protocols, and all of those wonderful things. But our staff has been committed to it. Our entire student body has been absolutely fantastic. And again, thank you to our parents and our community. One of the highlights of the 21-22 school year, as we were talking about earlier, has been the ability to offer more and more extracurricular events and activities to our students, which we know is sometimes the lifeblood that brings them into THS. All of our athletic teams have been battling hard on the courts, on the pitch, and on the fields. Students are competing at high levels in all of our sports, demonstrating character and leadership under the care of our fall coaches. Thank you to our entire coaching staff and our parents for your support in guiding our student athletes to be better young men and young women each day. As the fall has progressed, our THS soccer teams have distinguished themselves as leaders in the state. The Twinsburg High School boys and girls soccer teams are off to incredible starts in both of their seasons. The boys, fresh off a 4-0 victory over North Royalton last night, are currently in first place in the Suburban League, 3rd place in the Greater Cleveland rankings, and 13th in the entire state in Ohio Division I. Our girls soccer team, which is playing North Royalton as we speak, let's go Lady Tigers, is currently 8-0 on their season. The Lady Tigers are currently in first place in the Suburban League, first place in the Greater Cleveland rankings, and are ranked 4th in the state in Division I. As mentioned previously, Saturday is youth soccer for boys and girls teams at the Tiger Stadium. Twinsburg AC and AYSO will be able to gain free admission by wearing their jerseys. So come on out and support our soccer teams. Our music programs at Twinsburg High School have continued to distinguish themselves at the start of school. The Twinsburg Tiger Marching Band, under the direction of Mr. Bonnet, has lifted up the spirits of the entire Twinsburg community. From participation in the Twins Day Parade and football Friday nights, to welcoming our students to school on day one and play them in. Our band looks great and sounds fantastic at every opportunity. Our vocal music program, under the direction of Peter Hampton, has brought a renewed energy to THS. Our GE, mood swingers, and a cappella choir students are performing at amazing levels, and we're all looking for more to come. In academics, our English department has been working hard behind the scenes to continue to align the curriculum with the district's strategic vision. The social studies department is excited to have our students back in the classroom at THS. Our freshmen who transitioned into high school have been doing well with our modern world history, honors modern world history, and AP human geography course offerings. The physical science and physics students are working on design challenges presented by Reuters Stokes. Teachers took a tour of their facility and met with their engineers about building a partnership for our curriculum and project-based learning. They have also been adapting labs so the student can get hands-on experience while following our COVID protocols. A community focus in civic leadership. A highlight at the beginning of the school year in the area of civic leadership and community partnerships was the 9/11 commemorative celebration that took place on the square in Twinsburg at 10:28 on 9/11. Our Twinsburg community came together for this solemn occasion, and our student groups presented a touching ceremony. The THS marching band inspired with God Bless America and the national anthem. Great Expectations performed Let There Be Peace on Earth, and Sam Geeling, Ava Pasika, and Morgan Keller offered a spoken word narration of the events of 9/11. I would also like to highlight Rahir Sutanto, who is here this evening, who organized a group of student leaders to place over 3,000 flags on the lawn of Twinsburg High School the week of 9/11. I was truly proud to witness our student groups and their leadership and such a show of patriotism and respect for those who lost their lives on 9/11. School spirit and homecoming. The school spirit at THS has been tangible since we returned to school. Our school announcements highlight the accomplishments of our students daily. Our staff nominate Tiger Strong Students of the Week to highlight individual accomplishments and students who demonstrate leadership. And our student section, the paint crew, continues to impress and show up en masse for every football game. A weekly meeting with the paint crew leadership is always a highlight to discuss how our student section can demonstrate leadership and bring energy and fun in a respectful way. We are also excited to be able to offer homecoming on the turf at Tiger Stadium on October 2nd. More details to come. As you can see, we've been busy at THS and will continue to move forward through the school year. It's been an exciting year thus far, and I would like to take this opportunity now to recognize some of our student leaders who have demonstrated extraordinary leadership and distinguished themselves as Tiger Strong leaders. Donald Muller, excellence in music. One of our senior band members, Donald Muller, was recently selected as a member of the 2022 Ohio Music Education Association All-State Orchestra. This is a tremendously important honor for an individual musician, and his selection marks him as one of the top high school trombone players in the state of Ohio. Each year, OMEA accepts auditions for their all-state ensembles, band, choir, orchestra, and jazz. These all-state groups are comprised of the top high school musicians across the entire state of Ohio. The audition process is rigorous, and spots are very limited. Donald's selections to the all-state orchestra means that he can credibly be considered a top 3 trombone player in the state. For those unfamiliar, this would be the music equivalent of being named an All-Ohio quarterback or an All-Ohio second baseman. It is a big deal and should be viewed as such. Donald also performed civic duties and recently received his Eagle Scout Award on April 28th of this year. Donald created an accessibility pathway to the outdoor chapel at Pioneer Memorial Presbyterian Church. Donald is son to Brad and Patty Muller and has a sister, Rebecca, who is also a talented musician. Please join me in recognizing and celebrating Donald for his civic accomplishments and excellence in music. Congratulations. Rainier Santanto, civic duty. Rainier is a true student leader. Not only can he be found front and center on Friday nights as a leader of the paint crew, he is also a member of the soccer and tennis teams, and a member of the National Honor Society. Rainier would like to thank his parents, Tommy and Caleb, for supporting him in his journey, and let his brothers Reagan and Roderick know that they have a lot to live up to. Rainier organized the boys soccer team to plant over 3,000 flags in the front lawn of THS in a show of patriotism for the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Thank you, Rainier, for your leadership in such a spectacular display. Rainier has applied to the Naval Academy, the Coast Guard Academy, West Point, and the Air Force Academy, and plans to major in cybersecurity. Rainier, congratulations, and I'm glad you're on our side. Julian Robbins, excellence in academics. Julian was recently selected as a National Merit semifinalist, which places her in very select company. Julian is not only a rock star in the classroom, but she's a talented musician and plays the violin in the Twinsburg High School Orchestra. Julian has big future plans and plans to major in biochemistry and specialize in ocean drug development. Julian described this to me as, quote, harvesting coral reefs to create cancer-curing drugs. I had no idea what she was talking about, but it was a great conversation. Julian has a sister, Grace, and his daughter to James and Brenda Robbins. Congratulations, Julian, and I look forward to hearing about your future endeavors. And last but not least, Jessica Mason, Philanthropy, aka the Big Heart Award. Jessica was recently selected as the Leukemia and Lymphoma Student Representative of the Year for the Twinsburg community. This is a prestigious honor. I recently had the opportunity to sit down with Jessica and discuss our plans to organize and galvanize the entire Twinsburg High School and greater Twinsburg community to raise funds to help cure childhood cancer. Jessica has one of the most well-articulated and thought-out business plans that I have ever seen from a high school junior. I would encourage all THS in the Twinsburg community to come together and help support Jessica and her efforts in this worthy cause. Jessica is also a leader on the cheerleading team and in the classroom. In her spare time, she volunteers as a helper to work with students with special needs. Jessica is inspired by her brother Tyler and her parents Tom and Tracy Mason. Jessica, thank you for your leadership, your big heart, and your willingness to lead. Congratulations, Jessica. Thank you all. I have some certificates for you, moms and dads. Come on up and take a picture. I'm very proud of all of you.
Mrs. Davis, that concludes my report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And for those of you who haven't already made your way out, this is a good time. You are definitely welcome to leave. I thank you for being here. And we will move on to committee reports if there are any. And are there any committee reports at this time? All right. All right, so at this point, we'll move on to remonstrance. Persons wishing to address the Board of Education should submit a blue card in the lobby to the treasurer prior to the meeting so they may be recognized by the board president and welcome to make comment. No formal action will be taken on subjects that are not included on this agenda until the board has had an opportunity to study them. Comments regarding personnel must be submitted in writing through the office of the superintendent. Although there is normally adequate time for citizens to express themselves at a board meeting, if several people wish to speak, each person will be allotted 5 minutes until the total time 30 minutes is used. Each person addressing the board is asked to give his or her name and address. And looks like tonight we have one from Mr. Andrew Gordon.
Good evening, board, Mrs. Powers, Mr. Aho. Thank you for your time. I'll make this brief. 2 days ago, I saw that there's going to be a forum for the upcoming election here at THS Auditorium. While I love the democratic process, I also believe in transparency and following rules. I asked one of the League of Women voters who approved this usage of the facility. They responded, Mrs. Powers said that the BOE had voted on it. I've watched every meeting for the last 8 years, and I don't recall seeing that vote. As you know, all votes need to be done in public. If a vote was done in any other way to use this facility, it was not a binding vote. And I only say this because there are lots of community organizations that are trying to get in here to use this facility, and they are not being allowed to. So hopefully someone can re-educate me on what happened. The other item I'd like to speak on is that I saw on the agenda there is a item to hire Allerton Hill. Allerton Hill looks like a great consulting company. The amount asked for, it does not seem unreasonable. However, my question is, we currently have a marketing consultant. So are we planning to replace our current marketing consultant with this consultant? The only reason I bring this up is recently online I've noticed that there were a lot of complaints about the amount of money we are offering our substitutes and staff. And considering we're talking about, excuse me, having a hard time filling those positions, maybe our money is better suited offering them more money. When I can go to work at McDonald's for $14 an hour or FedEx for $28 an hour, maybe working at the high school for $8 an hour or as a lunch aide isn't a proper job situation I'd like to be in. So that's all I have for tonight. I do want to say, Mrs. Powers, I've watched 8 years of meetings. You work very hard. This isn't a denigration of anybody on this board. I know how hard it is to be up there, so thank you.
Thank you. And we have no more blue cards. So we will move on to Treasurer's Report, item G. Be it resolved by the Twinsburg Board of Education of the Twinsburg City School District, Summit County, Ohio, that to provide for the current expenses and other expenditures of said Board of Education during the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. The following sums be and the same are hereby set aside and appropriated for the several purposes for which expenditures are to be made and during said fiscal year upon the recommendations of the treasurer. Do I have a motion to move, please?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Fabio. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Felber. Any discussion? No? All right, hearing none, Mr. Aho, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. DeFabio,
Yes.
Mr. Felber,
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon,
Yes.
Mr. Curtis,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes. That item passes 5-0. Moving on to action items H. Action items personnel. 1, resolve that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the certificated licensed personnel and/or contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified, pending satisfactory ORC background checks. 2, resolve that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the classified personnel and/or contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified, pending satisfactory ORC background checks. And 3, resolve that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the supplemental contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified, pending satisfactory ORC background checks. Do I have a motion to move, please?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Curtis. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Gordon. Any discussion on these items? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Aho, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Curtis,
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon,
Yes.
Mrs. DeFabio,
Yes.
Mr. Felber,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes, those items pass 5-0. Moving on to action items I, new business. Number 1, resolve that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the attached listings of media center items to be deleted from inventory for the attached exhibit. 2 is an MOU for Twinsburg Education Association. Resolve that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the memorandum of understanding with the Twinsburg Education Association regarding the need for one high school teacher to teach an additional period at a rate equal to 15% of the teacher's regular compensation as sent to the board under separate cover. And 3, another MOU from Twinsburg Education Association. Resolve that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves a memorandum of understanding with the Twinsburg Education Association regarding leave options throughout the 21-22 2021-2022 school year as a result of the continued impact of the COVID-19 outbreak as sent to the board under separate cover. 4, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves a memorandum of understanding with the Twinsburg Education Association regarding the need to employ 3 additional full-time equivalents as long-term substitutes for the 2021-2022 school year to provide students with the intervention services to assist in filling academic gaps due to the COVID-19 outbreak. As sent to the board under separate cover, this is an ESSER fund expenditure. 5, contract H1, translating and interpreting. Resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves a contract with H1 Translating and Interpreting, LLC, 6100 Oak Tree Boulevard, Independence, Ohio, for as-needed translating and interpreter services for the 2021-2022 school year per the contract sent to the board under separate cover. This is a general fund expenditure. 6, contract for the professional services STEPS educational group. Resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the contract for professional services with STEPS educational group, 4040 Tamarack Drive, Carmel, Ohio, to provide educational intervention, OT, SLP services, and behavioral support to 1 student for the 2021-2022 school year in accordance with Students' Individualized Education Program. Total cost of contract is not to exceed $80,000 as sent to the board under separate cover. This is a general fund expense. 7, service agreement, educational alternatives. Resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves a service agreement with the educational alternatives for 1 student to attend educational alternatives Cuyahoga Falls location for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year as sent to the board under separate cover. The tuition cost is $30,621 minus $24,000 minus a $24,206 credit due to prepaid tuition for a student who withdrew. General fund expenditure total for the student is $6,415. Moving on to 8, which will be job description, Twinsburg Online Learning Academy Facilitator. Resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves a job description for the Twinsburg Online Learning Academy Facilitator per the attached exhibit. 9 is now the medical services agreement for the Cleveland Clinic Sports Medicine. Resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves a medical services agreement with the Cleveland Clinic Foundation on behalf of its Cleveland Clinic Sports Medicine, 9500 Euclid Avenue, Cleveland, Ohio, for sports medicine and...
Excuse me, Madam President.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Point of order, 10 was removed, so...
oh, that's right. That was changed. Let me pull that for now. 9 is actually going to be the last one on the page.
Right, so unpaid suspension would be 9.
Thank you. And then we'll start back with 10. Okay. We'll move on.
11 on the next page.
I'm sorry?
11.
Yeah. So 11 is actually, that's listed as actually going to be 9. Unpaid suspension pending the outcome of expedited arbitration. Resolved pursuant to Article 6, Section C, subsection C of the Master Agreement between the Board of Education and the Twinsburg Support Staff Association, TSSA, and the Twinsburg Board of Education September 1st, 2021 action to terminate Timothy Parsons shall be held in abeyance, and Mr. Parsons shall be placed on an unpaid suspension during the pendency of the expedited arbitration that he and the TSSA requested concerning the board's initial decision to terminate Mr. Parsons. All right, do I have a motion to move on those items?
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second? So moved by Mr. Kurtz. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gordon. Discussion on those items as read. Okay. No discussion. So, Mr. Aho, would you take the roll, please?
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFabio?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes. So those items pass 5-0. And we pulled, just a second, let me grab that. We pulled item on number 8, which is now going to be, let's see, it's now going to be 9.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, now going to be 10. Okay. So item number 10, job description. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Just a second. Item number 10, proposal Allerton Hill Communications. Resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves a proposal with Allerton Hill Communications, 1491 Polaris Parkway, Columbus, Ohio, to provide communications consulting services for the Twinsburg City School District effective September 23rd, 2021 through October 1st, 2022, as sent to the board under separate cover. The cost of comprehensive communications consulting services outlined in the proposal totals $5,000 per month. This is general fund expense. Do I have a motion to move, please?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Curtis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Felber. Any discussion?
I think after our work session, I debated on this a lot. So we do have a marketing consultant, and I know the scope of work is a little bit different on this than what our current marketing consultant's doing. However, some of this work feels to me to be fairly junior, where an upcoming recent grad that lives in the district might be able to do some social media content management, which I think is important. We probably should be doing that and bringing the skills in-house. At the same point, to Mr. Gordon's statement, we're seeing posts on social media about people who would usually take our sub positions. They're not interested in $8 an hour. I think this is going to be a real problem this year. At this point, I'm thinking that we're going to have to get creative in our spend. We're going to have to be able to recruit just to get the foundational services down to the kids. So at my point, I think the appetite for 2 marketing consultants when we are struggling to staff custodial services, maintenance, subs, I just think the appetite's low.
Okay. Do we have other comments?
Well, the only other comment that I'll make, we did have a lot of discussion around this at the last work session, but not only that, I mean, we've had discussions around this communications piece for months. I would even go back to last year around whether or not to do this, whether or not to, consider something in-house, an external agency. Mrs. Powers has been very clear to us that over the past year and a half, and her efforts to keep up with communications and send PDFs and things like that, the feedback that we got, was that it was cumbersome for our parents, and quite frankly, and she even admitted, and it's not her area of expertise. So I know that there's been a lot of deliberation about this piece, and I was under the impression after the work session, or at least during the work session, that we gave her clear direction, unanimous direction to move forward with this. I even believe that we did discuss the fact that we had another consultant that, as Mrs. Gordon has pointed out, the roles don't necessarily align, what she does isn't specifically what we're wanting this person to do. I just remember that we had a lot of discussion around it at the work session. I can appreciate the concern around staffing, the lack thereof, or at least the trouble of trying to get people to fill certain positions. It is a nationwide issue. It's pretty pervasive in Ohio. There's not a district in the state of Ohio that's not experiencing the same issues. I'm of the opinion that one has nothing to do with the other. I would love to have more discussion around possibly more compensation with those individuals, but I think that more needs to be done in the way of whether these positions are bargaining unit positions or not. We don't dictate salaries with respect to bargaining unit positions. Those are negotiated. And if that isn't the case, then we do have flexibility and it should be considered. I know that we have done things like that in the way of bus drivers and increased compensation for them to attract more bus drivers. But even after having done that, bus drivers are still hard to find, okay? So my point is, I think there's room for more consideration. I just think that after having gone through months and even a year of talking about this particular piece and giving the superintendent clear direction to move forward with it, I'm going to support it. And obviously remain cognizant of our expenditures, especially in this time and in this day and age. I think we should all do that. But I'm of the opinion that, you know, I'm going to support moving forward with this contract.
And I'm going to try to keep my comments brief. While I think it, you know, may be a good idea to have somebody to hire a new grad to do the social media piece, you know, give somebody a chance. I think it's just, there's a lot more to this than just the social media piece. And as we know, social media can be quite explosive. And I prefer to leave that part of the work up to the experts who've done this, who've proven success, who do this with other schools. That's their expertise. But like I said, that's only one part of what we're talking about with this agreement. As far as marketing consultant, I mean, we need somebody more than on an as-need basis for this. Another thing I would not be in favor of, I would not be in favor of putting this off to or hiring an administrator to do this, because then we're in even more of an expense, probably at least twice the amount of what we're asking here. So twice the expense and a lot of work for one person, and this isn't a one-person job. So there's a little more to it than, it's not as simple as it seems. I think we've seen proven success with this group. We've gone to breakout sessions and heard when we were in Columbus for school board conference years ago, and we've heard what they've done even way back then with some of these schools and the success that they've had. Well, if we were just asking maybe for somebody to manage social media, might be some interesting ways to go with that, but there is more to this. I'm sorry, I don't agree with that part, but I do, I support this as well.
I'm going to just add a couple comments because I think there's a couple things that muddy the waters. This is not about a low-wage position. This is not only about social media. That's only one of the aspects. What this is amounting to is the district's need to communicate in an ever increasingly difficult environment. There was a lot of communications done around the legacy project pre-COVID, and then post-surveys realized that even with all those meetings and all that communication, our message still didn't hit home. This is about a mature firm with a mature voice. This is not about someone playing on TikTok or Facebook. This is about supporting the office of the superintendent and the entire board with a mature, educated, strategy-based communications firm. This was originally vetted with the Communications Action Committee 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when we had all those action committees, and we had easily 15, 20 people on that committee vetting the need for things like this. So I don't want to confuse this with other employment. Maybe if we had more extensive communications, we can attack the labor issue different than our colleagues in other districts. Maybe that's a mature way to approach this. So this is what this contract is about. This is about a degreed, educated, vetted strategy consulting firm. The other work that Mrs. Koslow does is very, very different. It's graphic design, it's website, it's other things. It's not strategy and communications. We agreed in that meeting unanimously that the office of the superintendent should not be bogged down with every piece of communication and such that, you know, would keep her from doing the other parts. That was an agreement. And again, my recollection of that meeting was the entire board was supportive. I haven't heard a thing in opposition since that meeting. And again, this has been vetted. So again, let's not confuse this between other issues and other positions and other expenditures that this district makes. This is about getting our communications to the next level, because we have some very big tasks in front of us, and we're going to need the strategy and consulting of an experienced firm moving forward.
Thank you, and I'm just going to add, I mean, in addition to social media management, there's a whole list of things, but I'm just going to touch on a couple of them. I'm not going to go into detail, but some of the things that they provide for crisis communication assistance, video development, regular consultation meetings, outreach analysis. They preview and edit media release. There's just, like I said, there's a big scope of things that they would do that have proven success in other districts, small and large. So with that being said, that's why I'm in favor of this. Do we have any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, Mr. Adel, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFabio?
No.
Mrs. Gordon?
No.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes, that item passes 3-0. And, I'm sorry,
Clarification.
what's that?
3-2.
I'm sorry, 3-2. Sorry, ladies, 3-2. All right, and moving on to 10. I don't need my glasses for this. Resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the medical services agreement with the Cleveland Clinic Foundation on behalf of its Cleveland Clinic Sports Medicine, 9500 Euclid Avenue, Cleveland, Ohio, for sports medicine and athletic training services pursuant to the terms and conditions of this agreement effective September 1st, 2021 until July 31st, 2025, as sent to the board under separate cover. Do I have a motion to move, please?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Felber. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Curtis. Discussion?
Mrs. Powers, I have some questions on this. So you mentioned that we received a release of contract from UH. I didn't see that in the board packet. Do you have a copy of that today with you?
No, Mrs. Gordon, I do not have that with me this evening.
Okay. I have contracts with me, I guess. So I read the UH contract and it seemed pretty tight to me. So I guess, was there a breach of the UH contract? So one of the exit clauses is that they breached the agreement.
I don't believe it's determined to be a breach. UH determined that they agree that the contract would be terminated.
Under what conditions? Did they have any conditional clauses?
I don't have that letter with me. I could provide that to the board at a later date.
I would have thought that would have been, if questions, I'm sorry, with all due respect, I would have thought that questions like that maybe would have been asked beforehand.
That was the first time I heard the information that UH had released the contract. It was not provided to the board up until this moment, so.
I'm sorry, it was in board notes on last Thursday evening.
That they released the contract?
Yes, I put that in board notes last Thursday.
So it was about a week ago.
I must have missed that bullet point. Well, so no one else has seen the release of agreement yet? Has anyone else received that document from UH on the board?
I was under our impression that they withdrew and that they agreed to the compensation.
Did we go through legal with this?
Has anyone actually seen the agreement though? If not, I'd like to make a motion that we delay this. I'd be happy to meet for a special meeting in 24 hours. I would just like to see the release of the agreement.
So it should have been asked about it almost a week ago, probably, I would think, when you received it in your
It's fine. It's important to me to see the release of the
If it
agreement.
was that important and it was in the board notes, you probably should have asked about it before.
I apologize if I missed a bullet point in the board minutes.
The board notes aren't that detailed. They're pretty simple.
I'm making a motion to delay until the board actually gets to see the release of agreement from university hospitals that they've released us and what the compensation is. I don't believe we voted on the compensation to UH or the release of whatever the monetary.
So per legal counsel, the board does not need to vote on this. I found the letter in my phone if you'd like me to read it to you. It says, this letter is in regard to the sponsorship and service agreement between University Hospitals Ahuja Medical Center
Do you want to just forward it to my email?
and Twinsburg City School District Board of Education effective July 1st, 2017. Pursuant to section 3.3 of the agreement, the term of the agreement shall continue until June 30th, 2015. As set forth in the school's letter dated August 5th, 2021, it is the hospital's understanding that the school wishes to terminate the agreement prior to the agreement's end dates. Hospital agrees to permit such early termination in exchange for $6,250 payable no later than October 15th, 2021 as a termination fee. It is the hospital's understanding that upon payment of the termination fee, hospitals shall no longer receive the school marketing opportunities or the hospital exclusive rights as set forth in the agreement. School acknowledges and agrees that hospitals shall owe no additional monies under the agreement and shall immediately cease using hospitals' trademarks. Any future sponsorship or marketing activities shall be negotiated by the parties and memorialized in a separate document. We appreciate your full cooperation and the fulfillment of your obligation under the agreement during this transition. If you have any questions, it's signed by Alan J. Papa, University Hospital's Chief Operating Officer, East Market, and James E. Boos, Professor and Chair, Department of Orthopedic Surgery, and Michael Salata, Director, Sports Medicine Institute. Now,
Do you mind
my
forwarding-
understanding, I'm sorry, Ms.
Would you just
Jordan?
forward me a copy on Gmail just so I have it for my records before we vote?
Sure. It's my understanding that thanks to the work of Carrie Kalal, who is the board's legal counsel when it comes to contract language, she actually was the lead counsel in discussing this matter with University Hospital. She also took the lead in negotiations with the Cleveland Clinic Sports Medicine. And we appreciate Mrs. Kalal's work on this. I will forward this to all 5 board members. Any other questions, Mrs.
And it's
Davis?
also my understanding that they asked for a higher fee and we negotiated to the lower fee
Yes.
for the exit.
Per the direction of the Finance Committee, who had, as you know, Board of Education, let me just back this up. The reason why this has taken so long to get to your vote is because there was a question raised with regard to conflict of interest. Mrs. Gordon raised the question as to whether Mrs. Davis and Mrs. DeFabio could vote on a contract for the sports medicine agreement because both ladies are also employed, one by the University Hospitals and one by Cleveland Clinic System. She also posed the question as to whether or not she could actually vote on a contract because her daughter had an internship with University Hospitals of Lucia. The opinion, and I forwarded that letter to you last week in board notes on Thursday evening, was in fact the case that because there is no pecuniary interest for Mrs. Davis or Mrs. DeFabio, both board members are able to vote on the contract for either of these systems. We have spent months now engaging with both the Cleveland Clinic and University Hospital, seeking the very best opportunity for our student athletes. I believe that the opportunity is provided by Cleveland Clinic is the best one for our student athletes. I'm very grateful to Twinsburg Fire Department, who helped bridge the time in which we didn't even have an agreement in place temporarily with the Cleveland Clinic. They sent their EMTs out to help with fall football practice in August, soccer practice, volleyball practice, making sure our kids are safe. It is time to make a decision on it. It is time to move forward. Our kids deserve this. Our athletic program deserves this. And I respectfully request a vote on the Cleveland Clinic contract this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Summers. So we did separate that out so that we can have discussion. And as you said, and to be perfectly transparent, I had forwarded you a very thorough job description of my position, which at the Cleveland Clinic, which shows absolutely no conflict of interest, and especially after being vetted by legal, it was definitely determined that there was no conflict of interest. So that's why I am not going to abstain from this, and I will be voting. And is there any other discussion before we vote?
I would just say that we lost Trainer Mike, and so the timeline goes all the way back to when Trainer Mike resigned to retire his position. That's how far back this goes. Both of these entities did presentations in front of us before regular board meetings. They both provided detailed information with respect to their deliverables and costs associated with those deliverables as well, including the scoreboard component also. And so we've had a lot of discussion around the differentiation between both entities. So this isn't this isn't anything new. I just want to make sure that it's very clear that there's been deliberate, thoughtful discussion around both of these entities and the pros and cons as to who brings what and why. I'm personally, I was very pleased with UH, but it comes down to what Cleveland Clinic is willing to do in the way of 2 athletic trainers and 1 specifically focused on strength and conditioning. As a parent of a former athlete here within the district, I know, from what we previously offered and what is now being offered, there's no comparison. For any parent that has an athlete in the district right now, strength and conditioning is one of the biggest areas where we're falling short, where we don't really have any consistent program that allows our students to prepare adequately, and that poses safety risks. So it's one of the primary reasons that I'm particularly interested and favorable to going with the Cleveland Clinic. I do appreciate all that UH has done for us over the years. They've done a yeoman's job. But at this point in time, at this juncture, we are at a critical moment where delaying this would jeopardize the safety of our student athletes who are competing at this moment. Like Mrs. Powers said, I think the city has been gracious in allowing us to have paramedics. Work with our students, but even they said that their ability to do all that is required of them is extremely limited. And I would hate for something serious to happen to one of our student athletes, and we have personnel on the field that can't provide the care, the quality care that's necessary immediately for our student athletes. We have an opportunity for that to happen, I may have been amenable for a delay, other than the fact that there's a safety issue here, and I think that it's critical that a decision be made tonight, especially given all of the time that we've had to deliberate this for months. So I just wanted to make sure I make comments on that in terms of what my position is. Like I said, I do appreciate all of the efforts behind the scenes to kind of keep things together in the absence of T. Mike, while we kind of work through these contractual pieces and deliverables and so forth and so on.
So if there's no other discussion,
It hasn't come through. Has anyone received the email? I just want to make sure I say it before I vote on this. It's important given the language and the liability. I just want to make sure.
I would think that would be sufficient.
I personally
Didn't
like
we
to see
receive
contract
that too?
liability on this.
I thought we had received it last week, didn't we?
The actual contract.
It was just
I'm looking for the
read- it was
release.
just read into the record. The real travesty is the delays here were not over all this contract stuff. It was a legitimate question to ask about conflict of interest. But there's members on the stage that took way too long to respond, to put our athletes at risk when simple requests were asked. Our legal team couldn't even review this for over a month because of the delays from the folks up here. And that was where the delay was. So enough already with the delays. University Hospitals has graciously bowed out. We saw both presentations. We agreed this was the best for our athletes and for the district. Let's do our job now.
all right, Mr. Aho, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mrs. Fabio?
Abstain.
Mrs. Gordon?
Abstain.
Okay, that item passes
Mrs.
3.
Davis?
I'm sorry, yes, definitely, sorry. I'm sorry, so that item does pass 3 with 2 abstentions. All right, and Moving on, at this point to item 12, OSC bus bids. Resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves and authorizes the Ohio Schools Council for the November 2021 Cooperative School Bus Purchasing Program to advertise and receive bids on behalf of said board as per the specifications submitted for the cooperative purchase of 3 72-passenger unitized conventional school bus chassis and bodies. 13 sale buses. Resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education authorizes the business manager to sell bus number 23, which has been determined to be no longer needed for school purposes. The bus will be posted on an online auction site at www.publicsurplus.com. The net proceeds of this sale will be returned to the Permanent Improvement Fund. Do I have a motion to move, please? So moved by Mr. Curtis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fabio. Any discussion on these two items?
The only thing I'll just say that this is something that's been pretty regular. I know that Chad, where it uses the Ohio Schools Council for purposes of purchasing buses, and there's a timing mechanism, in doing it now so that we're able to take advantage of not only pricing, but our ability to kind of customize the buses in time, to get them in time, so that we can, integrate them into our existing fleet. This is part of our regular replacement rotation, if you will, to make sure that all of our buses are operational in optimal condition. And so I do appreciate the efforts to do that and the lengths through which the Ohio Schools Council was willing to kind of move some dates around so that it's accommodating to not only Twinsburg but other districts who take advantage of this program.
All right. Any other comments? All right. Hearing none, Mr. Ayo, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFabio?
Yes.
Mr. Culver?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes. That item passes 5-0. Miscellaneous. I have one thing. It doesn't really have anything to do with our schools, but you may have been seeing invitations around town, at the library. You may even see on social media. The Twinsburg Garden Club has a dedication of new Gold Star Memorial Marker to honor all those Gold Star families whose loved ones gave their tomorrows for our today. And they're honoring them on Sunday, September 26th, this Sunday at 2 o'clock at Veterans Park. I believe this was supposed to take place, there was supposed to be one last year, I don't think it occurred, but this Sunday, the Garden Club is sponsoring it, and I just wanted to make people aware that who may not have seen this publicized. So it should be a very good event honoring those individuals. Anybody else have anything from miscellaneous tonight?
Yeah, I actually have a couple of things. One, I wanted to mention a dedication ceremony that was done in honor of Mr. John Curry. That was on September 5th. It was a Saturday. I was not able to be there. I know Mrs. Powers was present, as well as other elected officials. Mr. Curry was former trustee, and he, was a staple, huge supporter of our school district and especially our athletics. I can't remember a football game that he didn't go to, and he used to travel as well. I know he went to the basketball games. But someone who made an indelible mark not only on the community but on the school district and his unwavering support of the district. And so I just wanted to acknowledge him and the dedication that he had for the community and the school district. It's someone who's going to be missed, but his accomplishments and the things that he's done in support of the community and the school district will always remain. So I wanted to make sure that I spoke to that. The other piece was Mr. Gordon mentioned that lack of a vote for the League of Women Voters requesting to use our facilities. There was no vote. I think that, Mrs. Franks may have just used that language, but it is not uncommon or unusual for the superintendent to ask board members whether or not they support outside organizations' use of our facilities. As evidenced today during her superintendent's report, she asked us about a number of organizations as to whether or not we support them. Anyone watching this broadcast knows that there was no formal vote. She got feedback, and based on the feedback that we gave her, it gave her directions to convey the sentiments to the organization that is requesting access to our facilities. The same thing happened with the League of Women Voters. So I just want to make sure that people understand that there was no breach of open meeting laws. It was simply an ask of, whether we were comfortable with them using the facilities. Each board member weighed in, to which time she was given permission and authorization to go back to the League of Women Voters to say, yes, you can use our facility for purposes of doing the forum.
And we've done this several times before, so it's nothing really unusual. But thank you for that. All right. Okay, executive session. That the board of Education enters into executive session at 8:57 to consider the discipline, employment, and compensation of public employees as per Board of Education policy number 01608. Do I have a motion to move, please?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Curtis. Do you have a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Fabio. Mr. Aho, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFabio?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes. That passes 5-0. We expect no formal action to be taken, so our Board of Education meeting is now concluded. Thank you for coming.